So recently, we had Mr. Putin's speech just the other day. This was yesterday. We saw him give his annual State of the Nation address, concurrently with President Biden giving his speech in Poland, right across the Ukrainian border, following it. His first ever visit to Kyiv. During his presidency, of course. He had been there some 8 times prior within his capacity of vice president under the 2 Obama administrations. Mr. Obama, of course, did not show up there during his stay from 2019 to early 2017. He, of course, was the first president not to since Ukraine's independence. Prior to that, we had President Clinton and President Bush Jr. go there in the 90s and all the way up through 2008. And as mentioned, from 2009 throughout the entirety of Obama's 2 administrations and the one and only 4-year stay at the White House of Mr. Trump, that had been 12 entire years, and then the first year of Mr. Biden. So over, no longer, 15 years, because Bush's last visit was in 2008. What we see that this means is that we're on track to continue support as promised. This was something that was stated earlier, but I think it's turning a new page to a new chapter. I think that this time it's for real, this time it's serious, and we mean business. The Americans, the Europeans, the Western world means business. After that scare in 2008 with the invasion of 2 regions of the Republic of Georgia, right? We had the Autonomous Republic of Abkhazia and the Autonomous Region of South Ossetia, or Ossetia. We backed up and we backed away. We listened to Russia. We caved into our fear of them and their dominance. We didn't do anything. Following that, we know that 6 years later, 2014 happened, the annexation of Crimea with the Little Green Men, the supporting of those troops, the separatist rebels in the Donbass of Luhansk and Donetsk. We caved, but now we're not afraid. Now we're showing strength, bravery, courage, no fear, a lack of it. Mr. Biden, President Biden, the sitting United States President and leader of the free world, made his way to the Capitol, smack dab in the split center of a country, in the middle of a war. This made it, of course, a war zone. And it was the first time a president had gone there, a United States sitting president, to a war zone where they didn't have total air control or domination of the skies above them since Abe Lincoln in 1860s. That's something. That's pretty insane. He went there, of course, with his personal bodyguards, some light security forces, but this was the Secret Service. He wasn't there with American soldiers. Not one had set foot in Ukraine. Of course, to our knowledge, that's publicly known. That's made official. They had hours before let Mr. Putin's administration and the Russian Federation officials know. They were made aware of his visit so as to not cause further escalation through the bombing and missile strikes on Kyiv that happened fairly regularly. This was the sort of day we told them, take a seat, take a hike, take a break. It's not happening. It can't happen today. These, of course, I'm paraphrasing, these were not the words that were used, but we let them know. We're not asking you, we're telling you we're gonna go. You should try avoiding anything. Had Mr. Biden been hurt or anything else of a graver matter happened to him, it would have been a tremendous issue. I would not be speaking to you right now. Internet all over the world would have been down. Things would have gotten bad. Well, here we are. Things went well, things went accordingly, things went as planned. Mr. Biden's trip to Kyiv 1 year into the war, the illegal war of aggression, completely unjustifiable against the civilian populace of the sovereign and independent nation of Ukraine. It went down without further trouble. 10 hours in, 10 hours out. He, of course, could not fly into the country. Russia is known for shooting down aircraft over the skies of Ukraine. He took a train from Poland in and out, 20 hours. Oh, goodness. Not to mention the 5 hours he was there sitting and standing and walking around Kyiv. He's an 80-year-old man, and he's lived quite a life. I can't imagine this was easy for him. 20 hours on the train. It takes a toll on any human body, especially in that region of the world. Central Eastern Europe is not a place necessarily known and renowned for their excellent railways and train service. It could be anything further from that. Mr. Putin did not do any of the things in his annual State of the Nation address that we expected him to. There were many different theories. One of the possibilities was that he would officially declare the SMO, Special Military Operation, to be a war, legally, in the legal sense, which would have called for further mobilization of troops. He would have recategorized it as a counteroffensive to prevent terrorist attacks. That didn't happen. He would have announced a withdrawal following the completion of the set goals and tasks. None of these things happened. He didn't declare it legally, officially a war and get more troops to be mobilized, conscripts. He didn't say, okay, well, we're going to stay there, but now it's fighting terrorists. This is a counter-terrorist operation. And he also didn't say, we went in there, we did what we had to do, we got everything accomplished, mission was achieved, goals were set, goals were reached, now we can go out. He knows Ukraine would have fought back. They could have been done fighting the Russians, and they could have decided to withdraw their troops. Ukraine would have kept on going to the Russian border. They wouldn't have passed it. They wouldn't have occupied any Russian territory. That's not what they do. They're known for defending, not invading, because that's what Russia does. But they would have gone down southward to Mariupol, and then eastward from there, all the way towards the border to the Rostov-on-Don Oblast. These things are all inevitable. They're not going to occur right now. We don't know if there will be a further mobilization from here to April, May. I think that Putin's next big, large speech, if there isn't one within the next week following the actual official 1-year anniversary of the war, he could give one to the State Duma. That's their chamber of deputies and senators, the lower and upper houses. If he doesn't speak to the Duma from February 24th through March 1st, or what have you, then surely before early May, and they're made a celebration on May 9th, which is when the Russians celebrate it, as opposed to the rest of the world on May 8th. Then we don't know what's going to happen, what his further escalation will be. He did pull out of the START treaty. We think that what's going to happen with that is, because the Russians will no longer be a party and hold their side of the deal for joint inspections, the Americans and Europeans on their nuclear fields, the Russian Federation and some Belarus collaborators on our Western nuclear facilities, storage houses, etc. We're thinking they're gonna go down the route of rearming themselves. They might reestablish some former lines that were out of use, out of service. They might activate more nuclear silos, move active missile heads that are already in existence to these other places, the locations where they weren't known to be held before, or at least it wasn't disclosed to us and our security intelligence services. Or they might altogether create some new ones, make some new nuclear warheads, arm them, put them on missiles. They currently have a stockpile of about 6,000 nukes of different varying degrees, different sizes, different capabilities, different strengths. They're not all able to do the same thing. Some are tactical, they're smaller in scale, and even those range widely. But what we do know is that now that we have no oversight of what precise number they hold, the quantity, the exact number of these warheads, they could expand beyond the approximate 6,000 stockpile that is, as of to this date, known to exist, known to be here physically manifested on the face of our earth. And we just might counteract that by doing it ourselves. We might reinstate some former warheads that had been decommissioned. We might create more nuclear silos in a wider array of areas, more dispersed locations throughout the contiguous United States and all of North America for that matter, the USA and Canada. We might move some into the European Union and NATO wider, like Norway and Turkey. Let's see how this plays out. Let's see where we go from here. The Russians started it. They pulled out of the treaty. The State Duma did come out making a statement saying, we're still going to honor it. We will be active participants, but we're going to live up to the expectations that were held of us. That is BS. You can't say one thing and then do another. Putin was very clear. He's pulling you out of it. The Russian Federation is no longer actively participating. It can't be technically held accountable for following or not obeying the rules and stipulations of said treaty. If you're not party to a contract, what's binding you? What's holding you to account for following through on agreements that had been previously made? There is no longer a counterweight to make sure and enable that they keep their end of the bargain. Nobody's going to be there on the ground observing them or have one of their emissaries be sent on our side to also check up on us. It's each man for his own right now. Things are thrown out in the air. Cards are just flying wild. We don't know what's going to happen. Let's just hope for the best and see the developments in the Russian Federation and Moscow over these next few days and weeks following the official one-year anniversary. I sense another speech will come soon. Between now and May Day, there's going to be two. The next one might announce the Chinese peace deal that's going to be put forward from President Xi in his upcoming visit at some point this year to Moscow, to Russia. And that might take a turn for the worst if they decide, well, we weren't providing weapons to the battlefield. That was the United States and Europe, Canada and NATO and their allies in Australia and Japan. South Korea didn't. They may have provided defensive material, but the point of the matter is the Communist Party of China might decide to overstep their role, tear down any red lines, break boundaries, and provide weapons, and that'll lead us to a whole new dimension that was previously unknown. We're one step closer to World War III. I don't think we're gonna get there. Anybody who's thinking of pressing a nuclear button is surely to get ousted by their military of the respective nation, as is rumored to happen to Mr. Putin, especially now that he's retreated them from this New START treaty. It's already starting to be rumored that because he broke this pact with the United States, that his life is further in jeopardy. So this was a misstep. It was a miscalculation. This isn't gonna be a raid the palace, break down the red walls of the Kremlin. We're gonna go into their palace. They're not storming the palace, but the highest army command generals could intervene and say, okay, this is dangerous for the future of our state and the dissolution of this entity, which is the Russian Federation. We can only hope for the best. If this happens, this would be positive for all of us. That's the case scenario, but he's not going to go down without a fight. He's been able to very well manage and manipulate all those around him, all of these forces, to do precisely what his bidding is. And I don't know that they'd get away with doing this to him without, prior to getting caught themselves and facing the line of fire. He has counterintelligence officers and security agents to different capacities and secretive roles in every single supranational and federal entity that exists within the Russian Federation. Nobody's able to act against him without one of his guys knowing beforehand. And it's up to this person to discover it and let it be known and prevent it from happening. Or somebody can just be secretive enough to get it past them. But I don't know that it's going to happen. Let's see if it does. Alright, I'll try to make another update video soon. Ciao, take care.